What's going on, guys? Mr. Octagonal here. Now, today, we have my 2019 March Madness bracket. They just released the teams around an hour ago, and once ESPN TC was working, I hopped on it as quick as possible. So, yes, before we start, before I reveal who I have winning my bracket, I just want to let you guys know that I am doing a bracket group. I will leave the directions and stuff in the comment section below. Winner gets something. I'm not sure what we're going to do for that yet, but without further ado, let's see who I have in my bracket. Alright, so round one, we got Duke versus North Dakota State, or I don't even know who that other team is. It doesn't matter. Duke's going to smoke them. They have head-to-toe the best roster in college basketball. They have the most dominant player in Zion Williamson, plus very good complementary pieces in R.J. Barrett, Cameron Reddish, Trey Jones, Javin DeLaurier. I don't know if he's going to be back, but Marcus Bolden. Duke has so much talent, and they should run away with this game. VCU, UCF. UCF has some veteran experience, of course, the big 7'6" Taco Fall. They've had a very good season in the American Athletic Conference. Haven't really heard a lot about VCU, so maybe I should look more into them. However, I'm going to go with the Knights in that game. Mississippi State and Liberty. Mississippi State's a very talented team. Lamar Peters, I think, is a very underrated player. They got some other good pieces around him, and I have them beating Liberty. Virginia Tech, St. Louis, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, very good player. They're getting one of their other guards back for the tournament, so Virginia Tech should win that. Maryland taking on either Belmont or Temple. I have Belmont beating Temple as well as Maryland. Maryland just hasn't shown it to me. And Belmont, they are a very good team. They did lose in their conference championship to Murray State. However, I think the Bruins have a very good chance to bust some brackets. LSU, Yale, perhaps my biggest upset in the whole bracket. I am going with Yale. They have been very good this year in the Ivy League, and LSU, I don't know if they have the talent of the 3 seed. They did have a very good year, I'm not denying that. But they got some talented players, but I just think there are better rosters as 4 and 5 seeds. Obviously, there's also lots of drama with their head coach Will Wade and point guard Javonte Smart with recruiting stuff. Smart is eligible to play, however, Will Wade can't coach. I think that'll be an issue, and I have the Yale Bulldogs getting the upset. Louisville and Minnesota. I actually went with Minnesota. I have to change that. I think the Golden Gophers, they've beaten some pretty good teams this year, and I think they will beat Louisville. Should be a tough contest, and then Michigan State, Bradley. Sorry, Bradley, but Michigan State has quite a good team. Cassius Winston, very good point guard. Nick Ward, very solid inside. So round 2, Duke versus UCF, and you gotta go with the Blue Devils. They have such a good team. You cannot deny the talent that they have. Mississippi State, Virginia Tech, I think this one should be a little bit more interesting. However, I think Virginia Tech's just been a little bit more consistent this season. I have them advancing to the Sweet 16. Then Belmont and Yale, I have the Bruins getting the win there and advancing to the Sweet 16, 2 double-digit seeds. Of course, Loyola Chicago was an 11 seed, so can Belmont have similar success? And then Minnesota, Michigan, a Big Ten battle. I'm going to be going with the Big Ten champion Michigan State Spartans. Sweet 16, I'm going with both of the higher seeds, Duke and Michigan State. They just have the clear, better team. I think Michigan State has a very easy road to the Elite 8, and if they don't get there, then that's kind of sad. Last year, they had quite a good team, and I would have picked them to win the championship if I wasn't a biased Jayhawk fan. However, they lost in the second round to Syracuse, so hopefully for them, history doesn't repeat themselves, but they don't have Miles Bridges or Jaren Jackson anymore. However, as I mentioned, Cassius Winston, Nick Ward, very good players, and then Duke. They're friggin' Duke. They should beat Virginia Tech, however, I think Virginia Tech, they know Duke well. They've played them twice this year. They have a chance to get an upset. Alright, next up, we have the bracket below that. Gonzaga taking on 2 play-in teams. I gotta go with the Zags here. I think they're definitely a much better team than both of those teams. Gonzaga has so many talented players. Zach Norvell, Rui Hachimura, Brandon Clark, Killian Tilly. They have a very good team, and I think that they could make a deep run. Syracuse, Baylor, picking against my Big 12. I think Jim Boeheim obviously is the experienced Tyus Battle. Very good player. I think he got hurt, though. I assume he's playing. I'm not entirely sure. But I think Syracuse, with the coaching experience, I have them beating Baylor. Marquette, Murray State. This had to have been the hardest first-round decision. Ja Morant or Marcus Howard. And I'm going with the Racers. John Moran is the best player on the court. And going into today, I would have said I had Marquette going to at least the Elite Eight. However, I mean, I don't see them beating Gonzaga in the Sweet 16 if they make it, which I do think that they could beat Florida State. Speaking of Florida State, I have them beating Vermont. They are red hot. They're playing good basketball. They played well last night in the ACC Championship against Duke. They beat Florida State, who has not lost to a team this year not named Duke. So I have Florida State winning. Buffalo taking on Arizona State or St. John's. I have St. John's winning against Arizona State and then beating Buffalo. Buffalo's been very good this year, but they haven't beat too many great teams. St. John's, they're in the Big East. Yeah, they haven't been great, but they have, I think, the best player on the court in Shamore Pons, and I have St. John's getting the upset. Texas Tech taking on Northern Kentucky. I'm going for Red Raiders. They can spread the floor. They have debatably the best player in this whole group of 16 teams in Jarrett Culver, and I think they could make a deep run. Nevada, Florida. This is an easy one. I think Nevada's going to win. They've sort of fallen off as of lately. It seemed like for a while they'd be in that 2 to 3 seed range, but they have so much talent. They made the Sweet 16 last year. They got the Martin twins, Jordan Caroline, Jordan Brown, talented freshman. I'm going to go for Wolfpack, and then Michigan, Montana. I'm pretty sure this was the same first round matchup last year. I want to say, don't quote me on that, but I'm going to go for Wolverines, who ended up making the national championship last year. They got good players, Jordan Poole, Simpson, Iggy, however you say his last name, and Michigan could make a run. Gonzaga, Syracuse, I just think Gonzaga has a more well-rounded team, and as I mentioned, I don't know if Tyus Battle got hurt or not. I don't know if I read that right. So I'm going to go for Bulldogs. Murray State, Florida State. The Seminoles are playing some very good basketball. They upset Gonzaga last year, and I will pick them over the Racers. St. John's, Texas Tech. I just think Texas Tech, sort of like the Gonzaga-Syracuse game, they just have such a good team. They got guys who can spread the floor, and I'm going to go for Red Raiders. And then Nevada, Michigan, definitely not an easy one. I'm going to go for Nevada. They upset the 2-seed Cincinnati last year, and I'm going to have them upsetting another 2-seed in Michigan. So the Wolverines go down in the round of 32, which they almost did last year had it not been for the Jordan Poole game winner against Houston. And then in the Sweet 16, I have Gonzaga getting their revenge on the Florida State Seminoles. I think Rui Hachimura is one of the best players in this tournament. He has experience. He made the championship as a freshman. Brandon Clark, Zach Norville, Tilly. They have such a good team. And then Texas Tech, Nevada, I think the Wolfpack's reign will end. Texas Tech has the better overall team, and I have them making the Elite Eight. The number 1 seed Virginia Cavaliers taking on Gardner-Webb. I don't think history repeats itself. I'm going with the Cavaliers. This is Gardner-Webb's first time ever in the tournament, and I don't think it'll last too long. Virginia does not have a phenomenal front court. However, they got Kyle Guy, Ty Jerome, DeAndre Hunter. They have a very talented group of perimeter players, and I have them beating Gardner-Webb. Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Oklahoma really hasn't shown it to me this year. I don't think they deserve to be in, and I'm going to go for Rebels to win this game. Wisconsin, Oregon. I'm going with an upset. The Oregon Ducks are playing some really good basketball. Peyton Pritchard, I really like him. Very talented veteran point guard. Lewis King, talented freshman. And I'm going to go with the Ducks. And then Kansas State, UC Irvine. UC Irvine could be a sexy upset. However, I'm going with the Wildcats. They were very good in the tournament last year. Yes, Dean Wade is hampered with injuries right now. He's their best player. However, they got other good players. Barry Brown, a player I really like, and Xavier Sneed. Kamal Stokes. I'm going to go with the Wildcats. Villanova, St. Mary's. Jay Wright knows what he's doing. The Gales, they're a talented team. They beat Gonzaga. However, I got to go with Jay Wright and the Villanova Wildcats. Yeah, they're not the same team that they do last year, but Phil Booth, Eric Pascal, Colin Gillespie, they got some ball players. Purdue, Old Dominion. I think Edwards will lead Purdue. I feel like Purdue, I think a 3 seed is a little generous. However, I do have them beating Old Dominion. Cincinnati, Iowa. Cincinnati had a big win against Houston. And I think a 7 seed is a little bit harsh. I think a 10 for Iowa is harsh as well. I think this should be a good game. But I'm going to go with Jaron Cumberland and the Cincinnati Bearcats. And then Tennessee taking on Colgate. I really like Tennessee's chances. It may not look it because, hint, hint, I have Cincinnati beating them. But I really like Tennessee's group of players. Jordan Bone, Lamonte Turner, a good supporting cast for their 2 stars, and Admiral Schofield, sorry about that, and Grant Williams. Then in round 2, Virginia's going to beat Ole Miss. They're just a more talented team. Kansas State over Oregon, same thing. Virginia over Purdue. I'm going with the coaching experience in Jay Wright. He is phenomenal in these tournaments. And yes, Villanova doesn't have the same pedigree as they do last year and the year before and the year before that. But I think a 6 seed was a little bit harsh. They won the Big East regular season and the tournament. And then Cincinnati, Tennessee. I've been very high on Tennessee this year. Probably a week ago, I'd pick them to win the championship. However, Cincinnati's playing good ball, and Tennessee will find a way to pull off a Tennessee. I have the Bearcats getting the upset. Virginia, Kansas State. I think Virginia's talent will be too much, especially if Dean Wade is out. If Wade is playing, then he can eat inside, and I think the Wildcats will have a fighting chance. Villanova and Cincinnati, a 6 and a 7 seed. As I've gone the first 2 rounds, Jay Wright is a phenomenal coach, and they have themselves a very good team. I'm going Nova. Last but certainly not least, we got this bracket right here, starting off with North Carolina taking on Iona. And I'm going to go with North Carolina. I'm not sold on them this year. Luke May hasn't played as well as I expected him to this year, and they need their supporting cast, young guys like Nasir Little, Kobe White to step up. But obviously, I'm going to go with the Tar Heels here in round 1. Utah and Washington State, I am going with the Huskies. I think that should be a very interesting game. Utah State's playing some really good ball. However, I am going with Washington. Auburn, New Mexico State. I've picked the Aggies to make the Sweet 16 2 years in a row. I'm not making the same mistake. Give me Auburn. They're playing some really good basketball right now. Bryce Brown, Jarrett Harper. They got some guys I like in Austin Wiley and Anthony McLemore. Give me Auburn. Kansas Northeastern, as you all know, I'm a huge Kansas Jayhawks fan. I am ecstatic with the bracket results. I think we got the easiest one, and I have us beating Northeastern. Iowa State, Ohio State. I think the Buckeyes could surprise some people. However, I'm going to go with the Cyclones. I think they could surprise some people as well. They're playing really good ball, of course, winning the Big 12 championship, beating us as well as Kansas State. Houston and Georgia State. Georgia State could bust some brackets this year. However, I'm going to go with the Houston Cougars. They've played very well this year. Yeah, they did lose to Cincinnati today. However, I think Houston is a very good team in a super underrated conference. Wofford, Seton Hall. Wofford's played some good ball this year. However, Powell and Seton Hall, I'm going to pick them. They fit, I think, what it takes to do well in the tournament. I think Seton Hall's clutch. The game last year against Kansas, they were just drilling shots at the end of the game, even though it didn't matter. And then Kentucky, Abilene Christian, give me the Wildcats. Round 2, UNC, Washington. I'm going to pick the Tar Heels. They're just the better team. Kansas, Auburn. I had a feeling we were going to play Auburn in round 2, and I told myself this morning, I'm picking Auburn. They're red hot. But you know what? Give me Kansas. I think if Kansas can have a consistent weekend, they should make it out. They have the most talented team here. However, Auburn's playing some good ball. But I think this is going to be a tough game, but I'm going to go with Kansas. A little bit biased. Yeah, that's fair. Iowa State, Houston. Iowa State's on a roll. Give me the Cyclones. They are playing some great basketball. Seton Hall, Kentucky. I'm going to go with the upset, Seton Hall. I think they're going to surprise some people, and I just don't think Kentucky has the experience. I don't know if they have the talent. They've played well this year, however, I just don't see them going as far as people think. North Carolina and Kansas. I told myself I wasn't going to be biased, but I'm picking the Jayhawks, and here's why. I'm pretty sure the game's in Kansas City. Kansas is a much different team at home than on the road. At home, this team is one of the best in college basketball. Give me Kansas. I think UNC's the worst 1 seed. Iowa State, Seton Hall. I'm going to go with the Cyclones. They're red hot. They're playing good ball. Give me Iowa State for a Big 12 battle in the Elite 8 between the 4-seeded Jayhawks and the 6-seeded Cyclones. Duke taking on Michigan State in the Elite 8. We wanted to see this last year in the Sweet 16. It didn't happen because Michigan State pooped the bed. But I have the Spartans getting the upset over the overall number 1 seed Duke and advancing to the Final Four. Yes, Duke is the most talented team in college basketball. However, I think Cassius Winston is the best point guard in the country. I think Nick Ward's a very good player. And I have Tom Izzo's squad as the first team to punch their ticket to Minneapolis. Joining them will be Gonzaga. This should be a very interesting game between the Zags and Texas Tech. However, I think Gonzaga, they have more experience than Texas Tech in the tournament. They made the championship a couple years ago. I think it should be a very tight battle. I think both teams can stretch the floor well. But I'm going to go for Red Hot Zags, who have been playing incredible since December with their only loss in that span coming to St. Mary's, which was just this past week. third team punching their ticket to Minneapolis will be Virginia. I have them beating Villanova in the Battle of the V logo. I think Virginia just has a better team. I think, as I mentioned earlier, Virginia's learned from their mistake. They want to make a run in the tournament. They didn't get to do it last year, and I think this year they can do that. I'm going to go with the Cavaliers. My last team advancing to the Final Four. Give me the Jayhawks, baby. I think we have a better team than Iowa State. If we can be consistent, if Quentin Grimes, Ochai Agbaji, if they can hit shots, if they can be consistent, Kansas can be as good and as big of a threat as any team in this tournament. Give me the Jayhawks to the Final Four. Am I being biased? Maybe picking them over Auburn and UNC. I think picking them over the Cyclones is fair. Yeah, Iowa State's playing really well, but I think we're going to get our revenge from the Big 12 championship. Michigan State taking on Gonzaga in the Final Four. Give me the Zags. I think they have a little bit better of a roster than Michigan State. Obviously, the big downside of Gonzaga is they haven't played as good of competition as a lot of these teams. But the WAC is still a very talented conference. St. Mary's in the tournament as well. However, I just really like Gonzaga's roster. I really like the way they've been playing. Nobody's been better since the new year than Gonzaga, at least I don't think. Give me the Zags in the championship. Fortunately, the road ends for the Jayhawks. I gotta go Virginia. They have a better team than us. It's blatantly clear. I don't see them not going far in this year's tournament. They have head-to-toe one of the best rosters in college basketball. I think they've been the most consistent team throughout the year. I think they've been the best team in the regular season. And I'm going to pick the Cavaliers and Gonzaga to make the championship. The championship, Gonzaga taking on Virginia. Gonzaga's been there. Virginia hasn't. I got to go with the Zags. And what I mean by Virginia hasn't is their core of players has not gone out of the first round, whereas some of Gonzaga's guys like Hachimura, they've made the championship before. I think Gonzaga's experience will lead them to the win. I think Virginia's been a tad better this year. Yes, Gonzaga beat Duke and Virginia didn't. Get over it. But I'm going to go with the Zags 71-64. This game is honestly a toss-up. But give me Gonzaga. They've played so well this year, and I think that they will be the team cutting down the nets in Minneapolis. Hope you guys enjoyed. Who do you think will win the championship? And make sure to join my bracket group. Have a good one, and I am so excited for March Madness. Go Jayhawks.